Today, we're talking about the power of leading with emotional intelligence. As a leader, as a professional, one of the best things that you can work on is your emotional intelligence. Maybe you've heard about emotional intelligence. Maybe you should know you need to work on it. Well, today, let's talk about why it's important, why you need to work on it, and how you can work on it as well. Today, I'm here with Rebecca Devaney, and today, she's one of the best when it comes to emotional intelligence. Rebecca is a serial entrepreneur who has led multiple companies past $1 million valuations and one exit. Her fourth company, Culture Theory, uses her true passion, emotional intelligence training to develop stronger leaders and businesses. Rebecca has been featured in Forbes, Open Forum, Success, Entrepreneur Inc., and other publications. She's an avid fan of chess, nature, bad movies, and any dog. So I hope you all connect with her after today. Rebecca, I'm super glad that you're here with us. Welcome.
Hi everyone. It's great to be here, Kit.
Yeah, Rebecca. When it comes to let's jump down to it. Our audience, they just like it sometimes when we just jump down to it.
Do
When
it.
it comes to emotional intelligence, I think a lot of people have kind of like a different meaning for it. What's your definition? What's your meaning for emotional intelligence?
So there are a lot of different definitions. I like the definition that we are accepting the radical notion that emotions are guiding the human experience. And from there, we can break out into the tenets that academics have sort of discovered throughout time of, awareness, self-regulation, motivation, emotional management, like relationship management, empathy. They sort of all have similar stuff, but some of the definitions get really wordy and they sort of pack everything in. And I just like to have a definition that we are accepting that that is what's guiding us and that we should probably behave as such if we want to have a really nice experience on this planet.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that definition. Now, I like how you use the word radical emotions. What do you mean by that, radical emotions?
Well, I think the idea, I mean, we've had it drilled into our heads from the time we're little that we will be successful if we have a high IQ, which is hilarious because your IQ doesn't develop past 18 and your emotional capacity or your EQ can develop until your last breath. And so I think the idea of this being radical is it shouldn't be radical. It shouldn't be radical that we make decisions from a place of emotion. For instance, if somebody has a head injury to the amygdala, which manages emotions and decision making, people can't make decisions easily anymore. They don't have the context. Like we have the scientific evidence that emotions are guiding us and that we have to listen to them and that we have to regulate them and we have to use them correctly and that we have to be aware of other people's emotions and we have to just accept that this is the way things are, and yet we all pretend that we make these logical decisions. And really, we make emotional decisions and have logical excuses later. But what emotional intelligence does, which I really love and why I'm so passionate about it, is it brings the logical mind, if you want to think of it that way, and the emotional mind sort of together. And then it gives people, if they practice through awareness or activities or trainings, like they can they can approach life in this completely different way that will fundamentally make them more successful. We see at higher levels, 90% of leaders who perform well, their success is due to emotional intelligence. It goes down to about 50%, 58% across the board. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things where I like saying radical because it's like, oh, it's so radical, but it's not. But we are kind of we celebrate IQ and logic in this way that I think should be reserved for emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Now, funny, maybe not funny question for you, but what if, let's say, we're working in an organization, or we know someone needs to work on their emotional intelligence, but they don't think they need to, or they don't have a clue. How can we explain to someone, kind of like, how can we
Mm.
get them to learn more about it or want to learn more about it? Because, it is very important. But from someone, let's say from a logical mindset, let's say it's like, hey, I've been doing good already. I've been leading a lot of people. Or I've been doing really good in my career. Why do I need emotional intelligence? How can we start to introduce it more to people? How what would you say?
Oh, I mean, I think that would be completely on a case by case basis because you think of the areas, it's a whole range of abilities. I would say that with leaders, sometimes you get a lot of pushback, and it's because they've gotten to the top. But how have they gotten to the top? Long hours, high IQ, a myopic vision that's maybe a little bit individualistic. The things that get leaders to the top, sometimes, not all leaders, of course, are the exact things that will hurt them once they're there. Because the truth is that there's no such thing as choosing to lead as choosing to follow. People are choosing to follow a leader, and the people who are going to choose to follow that leader are people who appreciate the emotional intelligence that they exercise, whether it's caring about the day of the person that you're talking to, or being able to communicate in language that maybe somebody technical understands better, like being able to adjust your communication. Like that's what great leaders do. And that's what we train leaders to do. So I would say like really listen. I think listening as much as you can to what, and especially what somebody's not saying,
Hmm.
what they're not saying and their body language, which is so hard right now with remote work. It's really hard to like, know what other people are sort of processing and what they're picking up on and what motivates them and what gets them excited. So I would just sort of listen very carefully to the things that motivates that person and then find a way to motivate them using emotional intelligence. So if they want to raise, framing it in, oh, they seem to really pin raises on how well you listen to others. It just
Yeah.
sort of, yeah, but it would have to definitely be situation by situation.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying. Listening is it's something we all know we need to do more often, and that we forget sometimes, and then just life goes by. But Rebecca, I know more of your story, but for the people who's meeting you for the first time, were you always a believer in emotional intelligence? How did you get into it?
I got into emotional intelligence in kind of a weird way where I don't know, not weird, but my story is kind of probably not very common. Where I was in high school and I had a bully named Nick who I stood up to, and he stopped bullying me. And then we sort of had a conversation about how we were both really messed up because I had had a really like traumatic childhood. It wasn't really anyone's fault, but kids like me didn't really do that great in the world. And he gifted me in 1995 the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. And in that book, I found like the secrets to the universe. That's how it felt because I knew I had empathy, but I didn't know how to show it. And I didn't know it had value. And I had some self awareness, but I was extremely confused. And I didn't know how to manage relationships. And I didn't know so much. And I read this book and I was like, even from starting a gratitude practice, it blew my mind. And I went from being this like very troubled kid to valedictorian within a couple of years. I would say most of my success is because of what I learned in those pages, but then learned on my own, which is why I've circled back to it at what I'd say is like the second season of my career. I just think it's the most important thing in the world because it saved my life. I would be in a very bad situation right now if he hadn't given me that book.
Yeah, and that's great. It's been life changing for you, and I'm sure that for the audience listening right now, if you don't know too much about emotional intelligence, it can be life changing for you as well. But Rebecca, tell us more. What is emotional intelligence training, and how have you actually seen it impact businesses?
Emotional intelligence training could be anything from coaching or consulting to workshops, but the idea is to not teach anyone anything. So we all have emotional intelligence. And if any of you think I'm some sort of emotional intelligence guru, I am not. I'm a messy human being, just like everyone watching. But I have this perspective that works for me. That's really how I would say it. It's like a perspective on the world where I'm always thinking about my relationships first, awareness first, forgiveness first, gratitude first. This is how I live my life, and I love my life. And whenever I don't love my life, it's because I'm not doing one of those things. So I would say that however you learn best, like maybe you learn best through reading. There's some amazing books. Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman's sort of the gold standard. It's so good. But beyond that, some of the results we've seen, one of our clients we've been consulting with now for 3 years, every year he gets a 20% return. Every year he works with us. And what we're doing is we're helping him lead better or be somebody who people want to follow. So we work with him on everything from effective communication to, cross-team communication to having the awareness to build a vision of what he wants in 2 or 3 years. So now we're building an exit strategy for him. And that's been so rewarding. And just to see his company keep growing because we can see our work kind of connecting to it. I think we just see our clients really shine. And I've been really surprised by who really cares about this work. And then the work we're doing now, I'm like so excited about, which is we're offering like decision-making workshop series. And the reason we did this is really realizing that we actually have the science. If you have a damaged amygdala, you can't make decisions. And that's the emotional center of the brain. We know that decisions are completely run by emotion. So how do we bring that in? Because ironically, when people are aware of their emotions, they can actually kind of regulate it and just bring it in as information along with data and stuff. It's when people aren't aware of their emotions that decisions go off the rails. So we're offering a series of 3 workshops, and then we're giving managers between those workshops basically instructions on how to extend it. Because we've done all these workshops. I just did one at a Fortune 50 company, and I don't think it was that great because it's just a one-off. And it was like, okay, but what happens next? So we decided to try and solve that problem. And that's what we're going to focus on for the next year. But we do see people transform, and it takes time sometimes. We also do a lot of visioning work with our clients, and they change their lives. They just start letting themselves think about, okay, in 5 years, if I wasn't using logic and I wasn't using, any sort of basically turning off the logical part of the brain, what would make me happy? And what makes people happy is usually, we've seen people move from being small business owners to foundation owners. We've seen people make these huge shifts in their life because all of a sudden they're listening to who they are and how they feel. So it's pretty, we get to see some amazing stuff. And I don't know, I just think I have the best job in the world.
That's great. Well, speaking about clients, what are some of the top questions that your clients ask you when it's relating with emotional intelligence that you think it's, everyone asks similar questions?
Let's see. I think I get asked a lot how to improve my emotional intelligence. And that's just so big that we get asked a lot of really big questions. It's like, what is nature? That's the kind of questions these feel like. So we really like to just work in specific areas. So whether it's decision-making or visioning or something where we can it's almost like we're translating this information to be practical and useful, because if we can't action it, what's the point in providing it? So I would say the questions we ask a lot, and this is my favorite question to ask people. Who inspired you when you were young? And from that question, I feel like so often I can get who somebody is and who they aspire to, because who spoke to us. Like for me, it was my grandfather, who is this polymath, and he was brilliant, and he had a vineyard, and he loved to read, war theory. And when I was 6, he was just the coolest human being in the world because he was just nerdy like I was. And I'm so proud that my middle name is his name. And I think about he's knowing that he inspired me tells you everything you need to know about me. And that's what I really love about that question. Um, yeah,
That's a good question. Sometimes we don't take the time to answer those questions, which are so critical.
yeah. Who is there anybody that inspired you as a kid?
Mm, my parents. Actually, no.
Yeah.
There was one teacher where he just stayed after school and taught me how to play the drums when he didn't need to, and
Oh,
so I think that was he gave me my insight into like the musical world. Yeah. What
that's
about you?
awesome. Well, my grandfather and really mostly my grandfather. I mean, he just like was so curious about the world, and so was I. And he would take me rattlesnake hunting in Virginia, which is so unsafe. But I mean, it was awesome when I was 6. I was like, this is the coolest person. And then I had a drama teacher who I was a little troubled, and she knew it, and she never mentioned it. She just was like, she just made all this time for me. And my only connection to drama was having to perform I had to like transform into a butterfly, and I did it before the minute was up. And she made me sit on the stage, and I just sat there and wept. And that was my only connection to it. So I had no connection to drama. I wasn't in drama. She just kind of noticed. She was just a very intuitive person. And she just gave me a lot of, like a positive adult role model. I liked how she rolled. I thought she was like, confident. And then as an adult, I've gotten to meet my hero twice. Doris Kearns Goodwin, the historian of Lincoln, and she I saw her speak when I was 17, and I thought, oh my gosh, a woman can be successful like that. Like, she was so
Mhm.
funny and smart and sort of self-deprecating and made lots of jokes, and she was so happy. And she was like, I'm here. I'm full human being just here. And I'd never seen sort of a professional woman in that way. And then fast forward about 15 years, I'm sort of helping somebody at a gallery. My friend had a gallery, and I was helping like serve food and stuff. And she comes in, and I just sat there, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And I had a towel company. My third company was a towel company. I tried to invent the world's best towel, and she bought my first towel. And it was just like, and so for the rest of my life, like my life was done then. I was just like, oh, this is the best thing that could have ever happened. So
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. Um, Still obsessed with her. She's not very interested in me, but why would she be? Because she's like best friends with Jon Stewart.
Oh, that's great. That's great though. It seems like it's like the people who had effect in our lives, like they just really gave us the time, or maybe they inspired us by being who they are at the end of the
Yeah.
day, right? So, Rebecca, question for you. As we're coming down to a close, man, this goes by quick.
Oh.
What can people do or be more aware of or think about, after this video if they want to push it to the next level and increase their emotional intelligence?
Um, I would say, I'm trying to think, I really want to leave with something that I think I would just say, first of all, that you are the author of your own story, and you have all the emotional intelligence you need to deliver exceptional results for the people around you, like improve your family, improve work, improve your life. You have everything you need. And you just have to give yourself the permission to start exploring it. Like, even say you're in a fight, you're having a fight and you've had it for the 10th time with your spouse. What about just stopping and listening and asking some questions? Because if you ask a question, it disarms the other person and also disarms you. And maybe even just that habit shifts things, and it gives you the confidence to change your next habit and your next habit. And I guess the second part would be that habits are a really good way to put emotional intelligence in your life. So a gratitude habit of every day waking up and writing down what you love and what you're grateful for. Because then you'll just look around and make more of it and you'll be more grateful. So those are, yeah, I guess that's two.
Yeah. And Rebecca, if people want to keep on continuing the conversation with you, where's the best place to connect and learn more about what you're doing?
So culturetheory.io is our website, and you can email hello@culturetheory.io and get in touch with us, either sharing your journey of emotional intelligence. We love hearing from people. This is our life's work. Or if you want to do a training, we do recommend these series of 3 workshops. We're super psyched about it, and we have room for 10. So I'd love to hear from you. But most of all, just go have an awesome life.
I love that. Go out, have an awesome life.
Yeah.
People need to hear that more and do it more.
Mhm.
Rebecca, before we go, any last words for today?
Um, no, I'm just so grateful to be here, Kit. Thank you, and thank you for all the positive impact you've had on my life. You're somebody I really respect and admire, and yeah, I'm grateful.
Yeah, Rebecca, thank you. You're the best. And everyone that's tuning in live or watching the replay or tuning in later, give Rebecca a follow, culturetheory.io. Rebecca, I want to say thank you so much for just hopping on with us and sharing your
Mhm.
experiences and story with us. And for the audience, thank you for tuning in. We will see you all later. Bye.
Bye.